speaking of, I recently did a very, very controversial interview with Tasha K. Had a great conversation with her. At a certain point within the conversation, she informed me that she had just done Joe Budden as well while she was on her little tour. So I guess she did like a 2 or 3 hour interview with Joe Budden, and she was very happy about it. And then Joe decided that he wasn't going to release it. Her version of it was that Cardi B and Offset didn't want him to release it. His version of it was basically him saying that some of the things that she said in the interview could have got him sued or would ruin relationships or whatever, because she was talking all kinds of crazy shit. You could probably guess who she was talking shit about. She talks about Cardi B. She's very, very honest about that. She's not really backing down from any of the claims that she made about Cardi B throughout the lawsuit that Cardi had against her and everything like that. But Joe decided not to release his Tasha K interview because he is a corporate shill now and he listens to people who tell him not to drop the shit. I dropped the shit. I have not been sued yet. I have not actually even had any single person hit me up angry about the interview. Now, there's a chance that his interview was a little bit spicier than mine, but as a longtime JBP listener, that hurt to be like, damn, so you really don't got the nuts to really just let that shit rock, right?
I seen you get on your gangster shit. Didn't they run down on him though? Didn't he already? He might be scared.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of got.
Might be spooked.
You got an idea of what Joe's character might have been like when you heard about the story, because when he first started doing Everyday Struggle, and that was like his first non-Joe Budden podcast thing. And at the time on the Joe Budden podcast, they weren't doing a ton of like rap news type shit. So at that time, all of a sudden he's talking crazy about Yachty on Everyday Struggle when it first started, like the first couple months or whatever. There was an episode where he was really going crazy on Yachty. And so then he sees some QC affiliates. I don't know if it was P or Coach K or some goons or whoever the fuck. He's seen them at like a mall or some shit. And they basically pressed Joe and told him, stop talking about Yachty. And his response, like from his own mouth, was basically like, all right, you got it. Like, I won't talk about him anymore, which to me is kind of crazy, because if you were letting your nuts hang on the podcast and being honest about not liking a rapper or not liking a person or whatever, and then somebody who's a big tough affiliate of that person can come up to you and have a sternly worded conversation basically telling you don't talk about that person anymore, and you just say okay, then what the fuck are you even getting on the mic and doing podcasts for in the first place? Like, what was the point of you putting out your opinion about this person if all it was going to take was somebody to tell you to stop, then you were going to stop? Like, I think as a broadcaster, you have to really like stand on your shit and care about business, right? You have to be willing to have conversations that are not going to make you popular if you want to be a great broadcaster. And so I always, when I've realized that was how that went down, I was a little bit troubled by that. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, somebody has a strongly worded conversation with them, or maybe like hints at the fact that they were going to beat the shit out of them, and that's enough to get you to stop talking about somebody. But now we're seeing that play out again with the Tasha K thing. And I feel for Tasha K because she fucking traveled all the way to Jersey to do this interview, spends hours of her time, probably spent thousands of dollars on travel and security and accommodations and all that kind of shit. And then you're just not going to put it out just because this is the thing. If he was actually worried about certain parts of the interview getting him sued, you could remove those parts of the interview. Yeah, you could snip out. If she had said some crazy shit, if she had gone a little bit harder than she went in my podcast with her, on certain topics, I might have thought, okay, she said this, this, and this. Maybe we should snip those parts out because we don't want to get sued or whatever. But in reality, it's extremely hard to get sued as a podcast for just platforming somebody who has opinions about somebody else, especially like the kind of things that she's gotten in trouble for saying, which is basically like saying that somebody might have had an STD or saying that somebody might have sent people to be violent towards somebody else. I don't know. Maybe she went further with it on Joe's shit, but in general, you're just not going to get sued for something that somebody says on your podcast. Now, and you do have to be careful about titled shit. You might want to use the word allegedly. You might want to kind of preface stuff. You don't want to be all in on somebody's accusations about somebody, but giving someone a platform, it's going to be really, really hard for you to face repercussions of that. Now, it might be just an issue of him thinking that, people might just have horrible results from their life. Like if somebody came on the podcast and said, Desto Dub is gay, it might be kind of like irresponsible for me to run that knowing that it would have a negative impact on your life or whatever, and I don't want to fuck over somebody who's always been cool with me. Sure, but okay, snip out that part.
Why
Put out the.
though?
I'm sorry. Donnie's gay. They said Donnie's gay. Boom. All right, now like snip that part out. Make it so that she didn't just fly all the way to the other side of the country to do a 3-hour interview, and then you don't put the whole fucking thing out. He's not being honest.
Who is he signed to?
Joe?
Yeah.
Nobody.
So he's independent?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So who the fuck calls the shots for him?
But he's not that independent because he's apparently shook to release content because it might offend some of his connections. I don't know.
Is Cardi a part of Rock Nation?
I don't even know how these things
Is Joe
work.
Budden cool with Rock Nation?
I don't know. I'm not paying attention to
They say
exactly.
Rock Nation, Tory Lanez. Speaking of Tory Lanez.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Rock Nation does big things. I'm sure they can control the narrative in all kinds of ways. But either way, the Tasha K interview is out. I have never gotten this much feedback from the black woman community in my entire life. So I'm feeling pretty good about that because I'm reading through the comments, and this is not like a demographic that I'm used to appreciating me or wanting to hear from me at all in any way. But I'm reading through the comments, and it's a whole lot of, black women that, from what I could tell from their YouTube profile pictures, and I'm like, holy shit, they love me on this one because I actually sat down and had a real genuine conversation with Tasha K. Probably the first 40 minutes of it was just me asking her about her come up and how she came to be in this position in her early days of doing YouTube and, how she got into the relationship that she's in, and she was bearing her fucking soul talking about her uncle molesting her and all this wild ass shit.
Damn.
So, I mean, I personally, I was proud of it. I thought it was one of the best conversations I had in a long time. And I treated her with a degree of respect, and I treated her as if she really had like a valuable perspective for us to discuss, which I think is why her fan base was impressed by it, because it would be the easiest thing in the world to get on camera with her and just be like, well, let's run through your top 10 controversies and let's just talk about the flavor of the week things that are kind of controversial right now. But I felt like actually the conversation was so good. And so that's why it really feels good to see that the JBP has been commodified by the corporate interests and the deep state. And they apparently are not working on behalf of the people anymore. Whereas No Jumper, on the other hand, we are. We are doing the interviews that the people want to see. And then we are actually releasing them, even if we are getting feedback from the corporate machine telling us not to drop it. So at least in that regard, I could say that it was basically a W, yeah.
Yeah. I see you went hard on him. I don't think Joe Budden's going to feel what you said. Has he responded in any type of way? Or you think he's waiting for the show?
I heard something I saw in the Reddit. There was something he said last week where he was basically like accusing me of using hair gel. Which you guys can
use hair gel?
I do not. Look at my hair. I know it's not looking great, but there's no gel.
But what's wrong with you wearing hair gel?
Yeah, gel is like not that out of the ordinary.
I think it's just the type of person that wears gel.
I think it's just like black people don't wear hair gel, so when they want to make fun of a white person, they're going to say, oh, you got hair gel.
Joe Budden. What is Joe Budden?
Mexican.
Yeah, he's not black, is he?
I'm just kidding. You're about to roll with it.
I don't know. I don't see.
He ain't Mexican. What is he? Puerto Rican?
Accusing you for hair gel, so you had to fire back anyway. Just because he tried to come for the 22ster. Anyway.
I wasn't really pressed about the hair gel comments. Like, to me, that's not really like a roast that I'm all that concerned with.
When you seen that he didn't have the nuts
to drop the fucking podcast, yeah, I was just a little bit taken aback by like to me, doing a 2 or 3 hour interview and not dropping it is one of the worst feelings that I could possibly have in my heart and in my soul. We did a Spider-Loc interview a couple of weeks ago that they didn't record the audio, so that's never going to see the light of the day.
Yeah.
When they told me that, the way I felt was I felt sick to my stomach. I felt depressed. I felt horrible. Like, even the fact that I had to get in there and do interviews the next day felt like genuinely hard because I put so much of my time and my personality into these fucking interviews. And even just having the conversation with Spider-Loc, I probably spent a couple hours researching them beforehand.
Yeah.
Sit there for 2 hours having the conversation. I'm having a conversation with him afterwards about how great the conversation was. Yeah. And then the fact that they're never going to get to see it, that shit hurts. Like, very, very upsetting. I should probably have more safeguards in place to make the world will never see
voiceover.
That's what I was thinking. There's got to be some kind of AI, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they could like read the lips or whatever.